Have you ever heard of a five-tool player? In baseball, a five-tool player is someone who can hit for a great batting average, but not only that, they can hit for power. They've got speed, so they're going to steal a ton of bases. Their throwing arm strength, they can rifle a ball from right field all the way to home plate, and they are the Gold Glove standard. They have incredible fielding ability. And it made me think that really a lot of times this is what we expect from the person who is in senior ministry. That person up on the platform, senior pastor, senior leader, the expectation is that they can really do it all. And not only that, but they do it all incredibly well. In today's conversation, I get to talk to David Robinson. And since 1966, that's quite a while, David Robinson has been developing leaders. He's been building teams and finding solutions in both church and marketplace scenarios. And he serves, even though he was a pastor for many years by title, he said ultimately he was incredibly frustrated in that position because of the expectations that were put on him. What does it look like so many years later and so much wisdom later from a guy who now is going into these different scenarios in the church and helping to coach these teams and elder boards and really get down to what is most important? All of that and more on this episode of Life After Ministry. All right, well, welcome to Life After Ministry. Today we have a special guest, and his name is David Robinson. David, hello. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Matt. It's great to be with you.
Now, you have had a lifetime of experience, and you said that one of the titles that you've had over the course of your lifetime in ministry was the title of pastor. And one of the things that we talked about earlier was that we have a disappointment in the church. And primarily that disappointment is fueled from unfulfilled expectations. We're going to dive right in. Tell me, what is that? How do we get to that point?
Unfulfilled expectations always brings life's greatest disappointments. I don't care where you are, what venue you're operating in. People have expectations, and I think it's the lack of clarity up front, and that leads to confrontation after a while. And the only reason, and this is what I teach in my leadership, the only reason that you have to confront is because you haven't been clear. Confrontation is the flip side of clarity. Confrontation means that you've grown impatient with the performance or the person, whatever it is. And so you feel like you have to confront. But I think there's a better way to do it, and that is be very clear up front. And unfulfilled expectations, I believe, primarily comes from a lack of clarity in the hiring process or the onboarding process.
Now, you've said that there are really 5 areas that we want to look at in that process of bringing somebody on. What are those areas?
Well, I believe that we need to look, first of all, at the person's spiritual gifting. You know, when Christ ascended to heaven in Ephesians 4, it says he gave gifts to mankind. And so if God gave you birth, that's the only place you can get it. He also gave you a gift at that point. And I think the identification of that gift helps in so many ways in the preparation of a person wherever they're going to serve God, whether it's in the church world or in the marketplace. So gifting is extremely important. The personality you have, the temperament that you have, I think is another area that's worth investigating heavily, because I've seen people with the same gift have a different temperament. Now, there are similarities in temperament to giftings, but I think there can be a different temperament. And so the temperament that you have, the personality you have, is how you're going to deliver your gift.
It's how it's manifested. It's how it shows up.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think that's important. I think having a clear job description that defines the scope of your responsibilities, but also a performance agreement on where everyone agrees on what a win looks like. When you have a job description without a performance agreement, and I've seen people, corporations, churches, parachurches, all of them try to combine them into one, and they make a pretty good effort at doing that. But I think they need to be two separate agreements, a job description and a performance agreement. Most of the time, the unfulfilled expectation is not going to be in the job description. It's going to be in the performance agreement. I'm disappointed, and then fill in the blanks. And so whoever this pastor answers to, whether it's a board of elders, a board of directors, a deacon committee, whatever, they all have expectations, and those need to be defined up front in the beginning. So then everybody's expectations are pretty well on the same level.
Yeah. Now, you said that you were in ministry and the role that you had was as a pastor. How long were you in there? And you said that there was a level of frustration that you experienced for much of that time. Unpack that for me.
Okay. They called me pastor right at 40 years.
Okay.
And then God put me into the marketplace. But, they called me pastor because that's the only title that the church really knows and is familiar with. But for me, it's more of a term of endearment than anything else. Now, it can be a title, it can be a position, a function, and a gifting. It could be all four. And so because I came from a pastor's home, third generation, grandfathers on both sides of the family, my dad, they were all, quote, pastors. Meant something different to each generation. And there were similarities. And I tried to be, but the more I tried to do the shepherding part of that, it would wear me out. And I would come home and I'd say to my wife, these people are wearing me out.
Yeah.
They're telling me all of their problems. And, I wanted to give them 3 things and get this fixed, and you won't have all those problems. But, that would be very disingenuous. But I finally was having a conversation one day. I said, Lord, I'm trying, but it's not working for me. The people are frustrated. I'm frustrated. What's wrong? He said, now this is about 1986. He said, I never called you to be a pastor. I didn't give you that shepherding heart. I said, well, that's what they call me. He said, I don't care what they call you. Here's how I gifted you. And if you look back over at that time, that would have been 20 years of where I sent you. It wasn't the shepherding gift that was needed. It was another gift that was needed at that moment. And as I look back over the 40 years, I could see God sent us places that the people need shepherded, they need cared for, they need taught. But I was sent by God to places that needed the apostolic gifting. I would never call myself an apostle, but to me, the apostolic gifting is a person who goes out into the unknown. He creates what's not there, or he straightens out what he's finding when he arrives, and then creates health within the congregation through the ministry of the other 4 gifts that are listed in Ephesians 4. So that was the beginning around 90, 92, when I really began to look at the ecclesiology of the church, especially since the, Constantine, when he became emperor of Rome and his successor legalized Christianity. And I believe that he was basically responsible for flipping the ecclesiology of the church that early church had known for about 300 years up to that point. And that's been a study of mine since then.
Yeah, I was once approached by a church that wanted me to step into their senior pastor role. That was the defined position. And how they led was they said, Matt, we really like you. We think that you're a 5-tool player. And I just kind of nodded like I knew what they're talking about. I had to look it up later. Even though I'm a baseball fan, what I realized later is that the five-tool player is somebody that has the 5 gifts. In, like, for baseball, it'd be that you can hit for a high batting average, you can hit for power, you have speed, you have throwing arm strength, and you have fielding ability. And I wonder how much of a disservice we do in churches today by looking for the 5-tool player. And really, I mean, Jesus that's essentially who we're looking for to lead our churches. We want somebody who's like Jesus, obviously, but we're also looking for somebody who can do it all, that they can raise enough capital or revenue funds for the church. They can hit it out of the park every Sunday morning. They're right there and have lots of bedside manner when it comes to, somebody in the hospital. But it's really difficult, and it's a high expectation to expect that from every single person that's walking in your doors in that leadership position.
I really believe that someone who has an apostolic gifting knows how to do the other 4 gifts. They know how to shepherd. They know how to teach. They know how to bring correction, that prophetic gift. They know how to share the gospel, evangelize, if you will. But they're not energized by trying to do them all. They are energized by building a team of the other 4 gifts. And if people are well cared for, well taught, correction is maintained, and everyone shares their faith with the gift that they have. They don't have to be an evangelist, but Paul told Timothy, do the work of an evangelist. People often say to me, I don't have the gift of evangelism. I say, no one does. Evangelism is not a gift. It's the evangelist that does evangelism. Yes. But we have to teach people how to share the gospel. If there is balance there, and if you have mature people in those 4 areas that are working within the congregation with people who have the same giftings that person does, then he can prepare them to serve the body. He can also prepare them to the ministry that they go to every day called the marketplace. And that's why if you have a pastoral gifting, you don't apply for a job in sales and marketing.
That's right.
You go to customer service. You care for people, and vice versa. If you have a prophetic gifting, you go to the HR and become an HR specialist. Better yet, become an HR attorney, where you keep that corporation corrected. So I believe that when you find, and you use the word 5-tool person, I think the expectation is one person's going to do all 5 gifts and do them all well at the same time.
Right.
That is unrealistic expectation. But someone who has the true apostolic gifting and they are mature emotionally and spiritually, they'll build a team of the other 4 gifts. Yeah. Because they understand those gifts.
So what's the role of an elder in this conversation? What are elders supposed to do to ensure that how we are operating as a church, even bringing in elders that are on board with this as a philosophy? How do we do that well in the church? What's the role of the elder in all this?
Well, elders, as it relates to a senior pastor, basically is accountability. They're going to hold them accountable for their character, their behavior, their pulpit ministry, obviously the finances, whatever that job description is, they're going to hold that person accountable for it. I believe that the greater the relationship outside of a monthly elder meeting, I spent a lot of time because I work with deacons and I work with elders. But the last church, I had 7 elders, and I spent a fair amount of time with them outside I would go to where they were working. If they were retired, I would have coffee or a meal with them, because, how can we labor together if we don't know one another other than at a meeting? And when you try to build a team or relationship around a task, all I can say is good luck. There has to be that trust. There has to be accountability for true openness in the area of trust. I don't know who it was. It might have been Stephen Covey said that all organizations move at the speed of trust, and there's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah.
So I think if you can get elders that understand their gifting, they're going to understand the leadership of the church's responsibility and the challenges that he's going to face.
And then not only that, but the elder board needs to figure out how they're going to operate. And one of the challenges we see is the tension between people on staff who are ministry minded, I put that in quotes, versus oftentimes the people who are coming in as elders are in the marketplace. They're from a corporate world. And the tension between ministry and corporate, and how do you run the church? How do you navigate some of that?
Well, again, there's that lack of understanding through the years, since Constantine flipped the ecclesiology, because for the first 300 plus years, the church wasn't structured anywhere close to the way it's structured today, whether you are a Presbyterian form of government or congregational, a mix, Episcopalian, however that government, it still gets down to relationships. And relational equity is huge. And what you have, the tension that you mentioned, that tension grows exponentially when there's not a lot of relational equity flowing back and forth.
Yeah.
I just can't overemphasize relational equity. You've got to make those deposits consistently outside of the meetings. I think the leadership of the church and whoever the governing body is, there needs to be a real spirit of Christianity. There needs to be a spirit of love and all the things that we kind of take for granted. But how can I love you if I don't really know who you are? I know what your job is. I know what position you hold. I might know your wife's name and your kids' names, but I've just seen a lot of disappointment grow out of the lack of true Bible relationship.
Yeah, I think when we look at those relationships, it takes time and it takes investment. And I think oftentimes the staff of the church is so busy with the people of the church that we don't prioritize even those relationships with our leadership. And we actually had a podcast earlier where we talked to a senior pastor who was let go because he sat down in a meeting. It was not because, but the situation was he sat down with his elders, and the elders had a conversation and said, we want to talk to you about when your last day of ministry is going to be. And I said, oh, I bet that didn't go well. He said, actually, it went really well. And I said, well, how is that possible? Because notoriously, that conversation, there's usually defensiveness and why are you kicking me out? He said, we had built a relationship of trust years before that conversation. And I knew that whatever they were doing, I brought them in to help guide me because I knew I was blindsided in some areas or short-sighted in some areas. And I was going to be able to trust whatever it was that I knew that they were listening to the voice of God and that they would direct, and I was going to be able to trust them. And that transition for him after years and years of ministry actually went really well.
Well, that showed his level of emotional maturity.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Whatever's in your bucket, when it gets bumped hard enough, that's what's coming out.
That's right.
And, we should not get to those places. And the reason we get to those places is because we have not walked together. We have not shared openly, transparently. But the disappointment over obviously when they set that man down and asked him when his last day of ministry was, he probably hadn't had a win in a while.
Mm.
And so they came to the conclusion he's exhausted all of his ability to create a win here, and maybe it's time he move on and we find someone else.
So what does that look like? Because, really the genesis of us having these conversations with the Life After Ministry podcast is because there are transitions that take place. Pastors come out of ministry, nonprofit leaders come out of ministry, missionaries come off of the field. And oftentimes these transitions, departures, terminations, there are often hurt feelings that come out of it. How do we as a church do these better? And are there even any telltale signs that would indicate to us that it is time for us to let somebody go?
Most of the time, leadership reverts into management. There's no longer a compelling vision. There's very little discussion at these meetings at that level. It's always about management concerns, maybe once in a while a win, but there's no vision anymore for the future. And so that having a compelling vision for the future, or the lack of having one, is what leads to these discussions. Okay, maybe I don't have a vision anymore. I'm staying busy managing what we have, but there's no passion anymore for what's over the hill, what's around the corner, what's coming next. And so if that senior leader does not keep that discussion going, then those people, as you call it, that come out of the corporate world, you can't do that out in the corporate world. The church struggles with knowing what its bottom line is. In the corporate world, your bottom line determines your future. If you run out of money, you start losing market share, you start losing stock value and all those kind of things that drive the corporate world. Those men, that's all they know, because that senior leader in the church has not kept them energized by, here's our next step, here's our, this is what's coming, and all, if he doesn't do that, then the elders, they don't know where to go with it. God hasn't called them there. And so most of the time you become overmanaged and underled, and that leads to departure.
And another indicator that we see oftentimes is burnout. What do we do to help those who are in ministry? How do we prevent that burnout?
Well, burnout doesn't come from chasing Jesus, I can tell you. Burnout comes from chasing people or chasing ideas that never seem to come to fruition. I tell all the young pastors that I've worked with, you need a life outside this body of people that you give leadership to. Not an annual 2-week diversion and then you're back 24/7. You can lead a church of any size 6 hours a day. You pray, prepare yourself for 2 hours, spend 2 hours with your staff, and then be divinely led to spend 2 hours touching the people in the congregation who need you the most. But again, when you don't have the gift, or you're not serving under someone who has that kind of leadership gift, you'll find yourself, I need to become a better time management. Well, time management is a myth. It's event management. It's commitments that you put on your calendar, and it's so easy to do 3 or 4 months out in advance. And then you kick yourself 2 days before for putting that on your calendar,
right?
And now you have to follow through with it.
Yeah, been there.
And so, basically everybody has 21 slots, 7 days, Every day has morning, afternoon, or evening. Make sure that you don't spend them all chasing after people. Burnout is simply moving beyond your abilities to try to keep the thing going. Or you haven't taught the congregation how to care for one another. There's hundreds of reasons why people burn out, but especially people in ministry, I said, tell me how you burned out by chasing Jesus. You don't.
Right.
And so you got to figure out, where did I lose it? People often ask me, what's the hardest thing you ever did in ministry? And I said, that's easy. What God didn't ask me to do. What he didn't call me to do. That's very difficult. And so when you have an elder board or you have a pastor or both that think God has called them to do everything, if there is a need, does the need determine the call? Those are deep questions that there has to be a lot of introspection done by people, because an unhealthy leader, and we see them all the time. I'm going to work with a leadership group out in Iowa. I'm going there about 14 years now next weekend. And the top topic they want to talk about this time is how to create work-life balance. And I told the pastor, I said, look, the best thing you can do for your congregation is to have a healthy family yourself.
Amen.
Do whatever it takes to have a healthy family. And if you have elders, that should be their desire as well for you as the one they asked to come and lead the flock.
That's good. David, it's been a bit since you've been out of vocational ministry in the church, but is there life after ministry? And is it any good?
Well, I struggle with the question itself. Is there life after ministry? Is there life after vocational church ministry? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And God may be calling you there. You've heard it. I've heard it. Probably many of your people watching today or listening today have heard it. I finally was able to quit my job and go into full-time ministry.
There you go.
And you know what my response? I said, what, did you just get born again? Oh, no, I've been saved for 40 years. Well, what have you been doing? Well, I had this secular job. Right. I said, wow, now I'm really confused because I don't know how a Christian has a secular job.
That's good.
I thought as the priesthood of all believers, anything I touch becomes a holy sacrifice and offering unto the Lord. So, yeah, there's life after vocational church ministry, because even though you may leave that location, your gift never leaves you. You take that with you wherever you go. And if you've been unhappy in the place you've been, it's probably because the task has not energized your gift. So before you make a decision to find the new place that God has for you, because he knows when you're leaving and he knows where you're going. He said, every step in life I've ordered. Every step you take, I knew before you walked the first one. And so he's preparing a place where you'll fit like a hand in a glove. But for that to happen, you have to be your gift that he gave you has to be energized, and you want to find a task that energizes that gift.
That's awesome. Sage wisdom. David Robinson, thanks for joining us today. If somebody wants to follow you in your journey or see some of the work that you've done, where could I point them?
Well, I have a website. It's called CoachDaveRobinson.com.
Great. We'll put that up in the show notes, but thank you for coming. Thanks for leading us, and thank you for your years of ministry and wisdom. And you're still going, and we love it, and real appreciative of your time here today.
Thank you, Matt. It's been an honor to be with you today and your people. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Life After Ministry podcast. If you are navigating a ministry transition, or you're in a ministry leadership role and you see a change on the horizon, the worst thing you could do is do this alone. We have 2 Facebook groups that are designed just for you. One is called Life After Ministry, and it's a group that offers community and support for those who are in transition. The other one is called the Elder Hub, and it's a resource center for ministry leaders. These communities are designed to give you insight, advice, and answers for your questions. We also have pastoraltransitions.com, and there you'll find articles on everything from messaging transition from the pulpit to what does it actually look like to become a community known by our love in every season. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast. Your support helps us extend our reach and communicate this message. So may the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Shalom.